Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and today we are going to discuss an important topic of cardiology again, and this is rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. What are the learning objectives of this discussion today is that we have to learn what is rheumatic fever and how common it is in our region, what are the risk factors and etiological reasons of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. In addition to that, we will clear the concept of diagnostic criteria, how to apply it on the patient, and then how to manage the patient. So start with the introduction. This problem is pretty common in our region, and on the other hand, in westernized world, almost eliminated because of the social reasons. There is a link of this rheumatic fever with pharyngeal infection of group A, beta hemolyticum streptococcus, and this organism can also cause the skin infection. But after skin infection, rheumatic fever is very uncommon, and there is a problem still worldwide, and it is sporadic or endemic in some regions, while the other regions are free of the disease. There is so frequent occurrence of the disease in developing countries like Pakistan. So what is rheumatic fever? The etiology of rheumatic fever has been documented that this is because of a group A beta hemolyticum streptococcus, but this is not a purulent infection. So this is not a kind of disease where bacteremia happens and it damages the different organs. Rather than this is an immune based problem, and the pathogenesis is called molecular mimesis. So the antibodies which are formed against the organism, they counteract and damage the different organs of the body, especially heart and brain. The most common presentation is arthritis, and the other vital organs are also damaged in this condition. So this is importance of understanding and management of the disease, because it may damage the vital organs ultimately if not treated at times and if not given a prophylaxis. So you can appreciate this is a disease of overcrowded regions and where the poverty is prevalent. So still this disease is going on in the region where the poverty is there, the countries which are underdeveloping nations, and in the developed nation, because of good hygiene and the measures taken for prevention of infections, so still this disease is very uncommon. So what we are going to study is about the epidemiology, pathogenesis, clinical feature, diagnosis, treatment, and what future treatment options may be there. It usually occurs in children who are over 5 years, most common in 5 to 10 years of age, and we can see this disease even in the children up to 18 years of age. And males and females are equally affected. There is no discrimination between the genders in the occurrence of disease. And as I told you, the overcrowding, poverty, lack of medical care, and even sometimes the malnutrition, they are risk factors of transmission of the disease. So the children who are living in the areas, slum areas where there is overcrowding and hygienic facilities are less, the disease is more prevalent in those regions. Where even the developing countries where the hygiene conditions are better and the people are educated and they are well nourished, so the disease is less prevalent. Virulence of strain is important, that even some serotypes of this germ can cause the disease. But the pathogenesis, which germ will cause the disease and which strain will not, is still unclear, because the same germ is causing, when skin infection, it will cause a renal problem rather than the rheumatic fever. So it is known that the culprit is group A streptococcus beta hemolyticum, but which strain will cause rheumatic fever sometimes is not clear. And in tropics and subtropics region, it happens all around the time because the temperature is same. And in other countries, usually the sore throat is more common in winter, so the prevalence of disease is more common in the winters. So pathogenesis, as I told you, it happens after 2 to 6 weeks of infection by this germ, and the sore throat, especially the tonsillitis, is a reason. And after infection, there is immune mechanism, and immunity will not fight against the infection, rather than it is going to damage the organs. And the time period is usually 2 weeks to 6 weeks after, and sometimes it has been seen in the cases of chorea, it may take months, around 6 months time. So antibody is made against this germ will cross react, and that is called molecular mimesis, the mechanism of action. So these are not protective antibodies, rather than these are damaging antibodies. And the most common organ of the body which are involved are heart, brain, and the soft tissue like the joints. The theory of molecular mimesis means the cross section of antibodies that are formed against germ will damage the organs. And the host immune response, so this is not the germ based disease, rather than this is immune based disease. So this is not a purulent infection after the germ, rather than this is a tissue damaging disease because of immunity or hypersensitivity. So virulent strain and serotypes are still under consideration, which substrain will cause in which human the infection, because the association of different types, serotypes, and which person is sensitive or will catch the problem is not clear. So again, the summary of pathogenesis, that there is sore throat or streptococcal infection in the throat, especially in the form of tonsillitis, and then after incubation period of 2 to 6 weeks, there will be cross antibodies which are going to damage main organ, especially heart, brain, skin, and so we'll continue with that, and you can see what are the symptoms. Initially there will be the general symptoms of fever, and fever is usually 38 to 38.5, that is 101 to 102 fever, and throat have a bad infection. Recently in the history you can find the child suffer a sore throat 2 weeks to 6 weeks back, but at the time of presentation maybe the throat is clear, and you can find the sign and symptoms of inflamed heart or skin, the joints, and the other things which can manifest is a generalized symptoms of malaise, involuntary twitching because of chorea, CNS problem, and skin rash. We'll discuss one by one. So clinical features, as I told you, are after some time of throat infection by this bug, and the main clinical features which are basis of diagnostic criteria as well are the arthritis, carditis, chorea, skin manifestation in the form of erythema marginatum, and subcutaneous nodule, especially on the extensor surfaces. These 5 main features are called major criteria. So when we will discuss the Jones criteria, so these are called the major criteria. I will repeat, the most common is arthritis, carditis, and the Sydenham chorea, the CNS manifestation, skin manifestation in the form of erythema marginatum, and subcutaneous nodules. So the Jones criteria was developed very early in 90s, and then was modified many times. So in 1955 it was modified first time, then 1962, and recently was updated by American Academy of Pediatric and Heart Association in 1992, and that is called modified Jones criteria, which is taken recently for the diagnosis with some exemptions as well. So the major criteria we have discussed before: the carditis, polyarthritis, Sydenham chorea, erythema marginatum, and nodules. there are 4 minor criteria: the fever, arthralgia, and the 2 labs investigation, elevated ESR or CRP, and prolonged PR interval. If there is arthritis, arthralgia will not be taken as the minor criteria, and the Jones criteria describes that if there are 2 major criteria or 1 major and 2 minor criteria and evidence of recent streptococcal infection. So I will repeat: 2 major criteria or 1 major and 2 minor criteria with the recent evidence of streptococcal infection. And what is that, we will discuss in next slide. The fever I told you is usually not very high, it's a 38 to 38.5 degrees Celsius, and the CRP is more sensitive, but it stays for few days only. So sometime when you are investigating a child of rheumatic fever after a longer time, especially in the chorea, the CRP can be normal, while ESR stays longer. Prolonged PR interval is evidence of involvement of heart. So any one of criteria is there as a minor along with 1 major criteria at least. So there are some exemption to the Jones criteria which has been labeled. If there is indolent carditis, means there is a chronic carditis and there is no other reason. In children, it is taken until otherwise the other causes are ruled out. So this is rheumatic carditis. The other thing is the chorea. In children, Sydenham chorea or rheumatic chorea is the commonest reason. So even if there is no evidence of recent streptococcal infection, because chorea is going to happen after 6 months sometime, so you should label it and treat as rheumatic chorea, because you have to give prophylaxis for a longer time. So what is the evidence of recent streptococcal infection? That can be direct evidence of culture from throat swab. You can directly see the group A Streptococcus beta hemolyticum, and you can see the antigen or antibodies against that bug. So the evidence of recent streptococcal infection can be in the form of throat swab for a culture, or there can be 2 types of antibodies usually taken as ASO titer. ASO titer in children usually have recurrent sore throat, so up to 200 to 300 they have sometime raised ASO titer. So other criteria should be met before giving a diagnosis, because here the prophylaxis is for very long time. So if ASO titer there is anti-DNA B, DNase B antibodies also, so those are more sensitive, and there can be a rapid antigen testing which is called group A strep test. And along with that, if there is a history of scarlet fever in recent period, especially in the time of incubation period, which is 2 to 6 weeks, so that is also taken as evidence of recent streptococcal infection. So alone major criteria or alone minor criteria without evidence of streptococcal infection is not considered as a diagnostic criteria for rheumatic fever. So that has to be remembered, because this will be asked you in the clinical examination again and again. So these are the different features and different organs. You can see the skin manifestation here. There is a lesion. You can see there are margins of reddish lesions with the central sparing, and this is called serpentine lesion. I will discuss in a separate slide in detail what it is. Arthritis is most commonly seen, and then carditis, and then chorea. Some of the major criteria, when they are mixed, they give strength to the diagnosis, right? Like if there is a chorea and you can find trivial carditis even on echocardiogram, this is confirmatory of rheumatic chorea. Similarly, if there is arthritis and you have skin lesion, so these are supportive evidence that this is nothing other than rheumatic fever. So the prevalence of the major criteria, the arthritis is the most common, which is seen usually up to 80% of the issue. Then the carditis, the chorea is the least one in clinical manifestation, and the least manifestation seen is subcutaneous nodule. But when they are there, they are very pathognomic. So the most common presentation is in rheumatic fever is usually high grade fever and arthritis, with the evidence of minor criteria, which is raised ESR and CRP, and you can see the recent evidence of streptococcus infection in the form of throat swab, antibodies, antigen, or if there is history of scarlet fever. So what kind of arthritis is seen in rheumatic fever? Just remember, almost every time the large joints are involved. Involvement of small joints like joints of fingers, they rules out rheumatic fever. Rheumatic fever usually, mostly involve the large joint. The most common involved joint is the knee joint, and then the wrist joint, then ankle joint, elbow, then shoulder. So the large joints are involved. Joints of the spine or smaller joints of the body, they are not involved. So the involvement is of larger joint, with the most frequent joint involved is the knee joint, and then ankle, wrist, and elbow, and then shoulder in serial way of frequent involvement. In carditis, and one feature I will tell you about arthritis. This arthritis is very painful. This is called excruciating pain. Even if a bed sheet is moved on the swollen joint, the child will not be able to bear the pain. And on the other hand, if you give aspirin or anti-inflammatory drug, there will be a magical response. So one diagnostic feature is that there is no involvement of small joint. The pain is severe and very tender joints, and there is a magic response of aspirin to the patient when given. In carditis, there is a pancarditis. So that means there can be endocarditis, there can be myocarditis, and there can be pericarditis. So in children, how they present, the most common involvement of a valve is mitral valve. In the sequence, there can be aortic valve involvement and there can be tricuspid valve involvement. But most of the time, 90% of the time, if one valve is asked which valve is involved, this is mitral valve. And when mitral valve is involved, it is swollen and it is like a wool. So there will be incompetence of the valve. And when you auscultate the heart, because of swollen valve, the first heart sound will be soft. And because of incompetence of a valve, there will be a pan-systolic murmur, which is best heard in the mitral area, which is the apical area, and that murmur radiates through the axilla. And because of a severe involvement, sometimes there is a flow murmur listened in the diastolic phase as well, which is called Carey-Coombs murmur. So the presence of a diastolic component indicate the severity of involvement of mitral valve. And on ECG, initially there can be upper long PR interval, there can be a conductance issues as well. There will be cardiomegaly because of large defect or large valvular involvement. There can be appreciated friction rub of the pericardium. I told you this is a pancarditis. There can be heart failure because of involvement of myocardium and valvular involvement, and there can be a pericarditis, and clinical manifestation will be manifested as the friction rub. So cardiac failure is another feature when you are appreciating mitral regurgitation as a murmur. So you should focus on the features of heart failure, which are tachycardia, tachypnea, raised GBP, and the hepatomegaly, crepitation on the back, and ankle edema. So in acute carditis, usually there is an involvement of mitral valve. Along with mitral, you can appreciate the aortic regurgitation as well. So there will be a diastolic murmur in the apical area, in the basal area, in the aortic area, and in apical area there will be murmur of mitral regurgitation, which is a pan-systolic murmur, and that is radiating to the axilla. and you should appreciate along with that there is pericardial rub there or not. And I told you the diastolic component will indicate the severity of illness. So when you are diagnosing a patient, even there are no symptoms of carditis, if a patient presents with fever and just arthritis, the recommendation by American Academy of Heart Association that you must do the echocardiogram, because sometimes there is a trivial carditis, and it will fulfill the criteria of two major Jones criteria. So echo should be done in those children, especially with the chorea. So far in modified Jones criteria, this is one of the exemptions. I told you the two exemptions of carditis and chorea. This is the third exemption for the diagnosis. But so far, for every patient, echocardiogram has not been recommended by pediatricians, but American Heart Association recommends to do the echocardiogram in every child. And this is a prolonged PR interval. So prolonged PR interval, if you will read in the book of medicine, that is 0.2 second. The 0.2 second mean 5 small scares. But this is not a fixed criteria. For a children for different ages, like in infant it is 0.14, and for older children this is 0.16 second. So 3 small scares in infants, 4 small scare in children, and 5 small scare in adolescent and adults. So the PR interval will be called prolonged, and this is one of the minor criteria and sign of the heart involvement. And the PR interval limit is different for different age group, but for a final year student, even if you remember it is 0.2 second, that will be enough. So examination of the heart is must, even if a patient is suffering from just arthritis or even chorea, because involvement of heart is significant, because it will have a residual damage if not treated well in time, and will give a lifelong cardiac morbidity and also associated with the mortality. And if heart is once damaged and if not treated properly, will have a lifelong sequelae. Acute rheumatic carditis and rheumatic heart disease are two different entities. Acute rheumatic carditis means there is inflammation of different valves, especially the mitral valve, and if this disease is not treated or the prevention is not given for longer time, the rheumatic fever can happen again and again with the repeated damage to the valve, or if it is poorly treated, the valve will be calcified, so it will cause the permanent damage to the valve, especially the mitral valve, and that will be manifested as the calcified fibrosed valve, which will manifest as mitral stenosis. So mitral stenosis will have a calcified valve, and in that case the first heart sound will be loud, because the two calcified cusps will be closing with a noise, and the first heart sound is loud. In mitral regurgitation of acute rheumatic carditis, first heart sound will be soft, and because of stenosis, the left atrium will be dilated, and that will cause atrial fibrillation at time, and the pulse will be irregular. So mitral stenosis is the manifestation of a calcified valve, and it happens in a late childhood or adolescent age, and this is a long-term complication if acute rheumatic carditis is not properly treated, or a prophylaxis is not given to these patients who have been labeled as rheumatic fever or rheumatic cardiac problem. So mitral valve, I told you, is mostly involved, but aortic valve is the second one to be injured after this disease. So again, for a summary, what is rheumatic heart disease? By WHO, rheumatic heart disease is a chronic condition resulting from rheumatic fever. So that is characterized by its scarring and deformity of the heart valves, and those valves are calcified and permanently damaged. So in a rheumatic heart problem, it can be acute phase, it can be so that in the form of pancarditis, and it can be a rheumatic heart disease in the form of calcified valve. What is Sydenham chorea? This is a third major sign. The first sign was arthritis, second is carditis, and this is a third one. Usually happens in a later age group, and mechanism is same, but the presentation is delayed up to 6 months to 6 weeks to 6 months. Here the female have more chances of suffering with the chorea, and initially how they present, there will be a complaint from the school that child's behavior is very odd. The child is become emotionally disturbed at times. She will start crying, or she will have tantrums, or there is hyperactivity and attention span will be disturbed. The mood disorders, writing will be disturbed because of the chorea. So initial symptom can be trivial and manifested as mood changes. This is called emotional lability, so unstable emotions and mood, and with that there will be a personality changes, and later on it will manifest as involuntary movement, which is a choreiform movements. Usually the chorea is generalized, but it can be hemichorea, involvement of half of the body sometime, and even the monochorea has been reported that only one limb is showing abnormal movements. So this is a pronator sign. There are milkmaid sign. The pronator sign we will discuss when the clinical class is there. And these children have ataxia. If involvement is severe, there will be a truncal ataxia. The mood changes have been noticed that in our region, the children are usually depressed rather than aggressive, and the speech, they become mute rather than they have the different type of speech, especially the slurred speech and mood changes in the form of depression are more common that have been studied in our region. What are the subcutaneous nodules? These are like you have seen the lymph nodes in the neck. These nodes can be appreciated along the extensor surfaces of the limb. So if you feel along the spine, you can palpate the firm nodules, and also in the limbs, especially the upper limbs. So they are on the knees, elbows and wrist, and along with the spine, and these last only a few days. So that's why this is a rare sign, and occurs only in around 10 to 20% of the cases. But if it is with the carditis, they are very supportive of evidence of rheumatic fever. So rheumatic fever diagnosis, again, you can appreciate the nodules along with the and there is involvement of the larger joint, and the small joints are exempted. The fifth major criteria is erythema marginatum, and erythema marginatum has strong association when there is arthritis, and it happens again only in a 7% of patient. But if you have once seen the skin lesion, there are reddish serpentine like, so there are lines of reddish lesions like snake movement, and if you have examined in the morning, the site is different when you examine after a few hours. So they keeps on changing the site, the lesion, and there is central halo, means central clearing of the lesion. So very, very classical kind of skin lesion, and they are very pathognomic of rheumatic fever, but their occurrence is very less. We have seen the occurrence of a major criteria of arthritis is 80%, and here the skin lesions are around 7 to 20%. So they are very suggestive of rheumatic fever if seen, especially with carditis and arthritis. So maybe this slide is not very clear. If you can appreciate, this is kind of spreaded linear lesions, and they keeps on changing their site when you examine in a sequential way. So what is differential diagnosis? There can be diagnosis in any condition where the fever is there and multiple joints are involved. So the clinical features of rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus, they have their own diagnostic criteria. So other than arthritis, there is usually involvement of small joints in those conditions, and duration of illness must be longer, where in rheumatic, if you start treatment earlier, there is a magical response of arthritis. Bacterial endocarditis is a strongest differential diagnosis of rheumatic fever with different features, because there is a murmur also, and there are clinical systemic manifestations which are closely related, and there is high grade fever sometime. So blood culture will be one of the investigation other than CBC, CRP, ESR, blood culture and ECG. These are the main, and echocardiogram, these are the main diagnostic feature. And in Korea you may do MRI and other investigations. So these are the diseases mentioned here in descending order, or in the order of common presentation, with the involvement of joints and fever. But rheumatic fever, if you have evidence of recent streptococcal infection other than these features, so this is a basis of diagnosis. So what laboratory test you will do, and this is CBC. CBC usually shows not very much changes, because usually the TLC is normal, HB is normal, platelets are normal, so CBC will be usually normal. And CRP, I told you that this is a short lived investigation. ESR, but more sensitive than ESR. And you have to get the evidence of recent streptococcal infection in the form of throat culture, antigen testing or antibiotic testing, or there is a history of scarlet fever. ECG, most likely there is the clinical sign of prolonged PR interval. And this ECG of prolonged PR interval is usually a feature of acute carditis. And I told you this carditis is a pancarditis. So the echocardiogram will diagnose sometimes trivial cases, the silent carditis even, and the echocardiogram is one of the routine investigation in this case. So how to treat this patient? I told you when there is arthritis, the salicylate aspirin in the dose of 50 to 75 milligram per kg. This is a pretty high dose, and you must be remembering the side effects of aspirin, which are tinnitus, vertigo, and the breathing issues, alkalosis, and there can be vomiting. So you are using in a pretty high dose, and that is usually given in 3 weeks while you are monitoring the clinical features and ESR as well. So you will discontinue the medicine, and if a salicylate is mostly used, the aspirin, NSAIDs are rarely used when there is sensitivity to salicylate or some problem with the salicylate, or patient is not tolerating, or there are side effects after starting medication. So dose is 50 to 70 milligram per kg per day, and you will see the magical response, especially in the arthritis and fever. So that is also one of the supportive evidence that this is a rheumatic fever, because in patient of rheumatoid arthritis or rheumatological causes, it will take days and weeks to give you response. We have seen even after 24 hours, the patient will be pain free after starting of aspirin. But when the patient is symptom free, you will not discontinue. You have to maintain the dose at least for 3 weeks. And if there is poor response, sometimes there is a question, are we dealing with rheumatic fever or not? And how to treat carditis? If the carditis is mild and there is no feature of cardiac failure, so then patient is treated with similar way like we have seen before, only with the aspirin or NSAIDs. If there are signs of heart failure, the primary treatment is corticosteroid in the form of prednisolone, and that is given for 4 weeks, and there is a bed rest also because they are feature of heart failure. So after 2 weeks, if the response is clear and the lab evidence give a cure, lab evidence is there of improvement, you may taper it. When you start tapering the prednisolone or the steroid, and at that time you start aspirin as well, and that is given another 4 to 6 weeks. So a patient who is having carditis with heart failure, the treatment is steroid, and at that time aspirin is not added if there is no arthritis, and you maintain the patient's treatment with aspirin after you start tapering steroid. So it is given 2 to 4 weeks, and then tapering dose of another 2 to 4 weeks. And so if somebody asks you in the exam, how will you give steroid in heart failure? So 2 weeks taper, and then aspirin after 2 to 4 weeks. If there is simultaneously there is arthritis also, you may start the two treatment together. Treatment of Sydenham chorea is it depends upon the behavior issue is more prominent or the movement disorder. If behavior is more issue, then haloperidol is a drug of choice, and if there are movement issues, then sodium valproate or phenobarbital is given. There is an immune mechanism we haven't discussed. Can we give steroids? Can we give immunoglobulin in this case? So steroid has been used recently for the treatment of chorea as well, and there are research articles that IV immunoglobulins are having also a role in this scenario. So this depends on if these medications, which are commonly used as haloperidol, sodium valproate or phenobarbital, if they are not working or the disease is severe, you may use steroids as well. So but the main treatment, if asked in MCQ, are these two options. So this disease can occur again and again. So how to prevent it? So there are general measures of prevention, that rules of hygiene, prevention of sore throat, and if there is streptococcal sore throat infection, that should be treated every time. This is a primary prevention. So primary prevention is the general measures and the treatment of sore throat by streptococcal beta hemolyticum. And antibiotic you may use is the penicillin group, and benzyl penicillin can be given for acute sore throat infection for 10 days. And this has been seen when it was used regularly, there was fall in the incidence of rheumatic fever. And I told you the general risk factors are also comes in primary prevention. So primary prevention is the treatment of bacterial streptococcal sore throat infection. And what is secondary prophylaxis? Secondary prophylaxis is given to any patient who is diagnosed as rheumatic fever or rheumatic fever with carditis for a different time period. So this infection should not reoccur. So to prevent the recurrence, and because recurrence is associated every time with the more damage to the heart and sometime the permanent damage to the heart. So that can be a risk for the life. There is a general principle of giving the prevention with the benzathine penicillin, which is a long-acting penicillin, and this penicillin is given every 3 to 4 weeks. The dose is half injection if the child is less than 27 kilo, and if is more than full injection of 1.2 million. So what is the duration of treatment? The recommendation is that in carditis, if there is acute carditis, you may give prophylaxis every 2 weeks, and then usually it is given 3 to 4 weeks. हर 3 से 4 हफ्ते के बाद आपने पेशेंट को टीका लगाना है. Right? The first time the sensitivity will be checked, then every time it is given intramuscular. So benzathine penicillin is a long-acting drug which will work for 3 to 4 weeks, and it is given intramuscular. What is the duration of treatment? Duration of treatment is lifelong if there is a residual damage after carditis. Otherwise, it is 5 years after the last episode or 21 year, whichever is later. Mean अगर एक पेशेंट कोई 16 साल का है तो उसे 5 साल मिलेगी, और अगर एक पेशेंट 5 साल का है तो उसको 21 ईयर एज तक मिलेगी. और now new recommendation is minimum 10 year or 21 year, whichever is later. And for a patient who had carditis with residual heart damage, this is lifelong. So at least in our patient age group, so you have to give till the patient is with a pediatrician. What is the future treatment? When we were students, even there were discussion that it can be preventive by developing a vaccine against the Streptococcus group A beta hemolytic organism. This is still under the experimental stage. I have not seen this vaccine being given in any part of the world as a mass vaccination. So the rheumatic fever is for generations in the literature, but you have seen the corona vaccine developed within months after the disease, but after decades even there is no vaccine available for the public, especially in our region where the disease is very prevalent. And why hypersensitivity reaction occur in some children and it does not occur after the infection on other side like skin. So that is still a topic of study. One of the Pakistani doctor is famous in UK for repairing the mitral valve after damage. His name is Fargad Alamgir and he is working now in Pakistan. So you can do the valvoplasty by the balloon mitral access, or there can be a surgical correction if the valve is damaged so enough that the pharmacological treatment is not sufficient to maintain the life of a patient. So if I summarize the problem, rheumatic fever is immune-based disease after group A Streptococcus beta hemolyticum, and there is a molecular mimicry as a pathogenesis, and the tissue are involved. Giving a major criteria in the modified Jones criteria is arthritis, carditis, rheumatochordia, and subcutaneous nodule and erythema marginatum. As a minor criteria, it can be fever, arthralgia if arthritis is not there, for long PR interval, and there must be raised CRP or ESR, and along with that one major and two minor criteria, there must be evidence of recent streptococcal infection in the form of culture, antibodies or antigen, and you have to give prophylaxis for the prevention of disease, and you have to maintain it by a secondary prophylaxis if patient suffered rheumatic fever for different duration of time. Thank you very much.